After 10 years of trying to capture Lin Qing, he still chose Bai Guang. In desperation, I told him the secret. Actually, I am the capturer. If the capture fails, I will die. Can you like me a little more? He laughed and said, then you will die. Later, I was hit by a car and was in critical condition. The system exchanged my memory with my life value. I agreed. After waking up, looking at my unfamiliar eyes, Lin Qing panicked. His eyes were red and his pride was broken. He begged me again and again, I can pay anything. Don't forget me anymore. Please. Today is the last day to capture Lin Qing. It is also the first day of my marriage with him. However, I was the only one in the wedding room decorated with red. He did not return all night. I sat by the window, looking at the gray sky, stroking the ring on my ring finger. It was cold and hard. The system reminded, host, there are still 5 hours before the end of the mission. If you haven't completed the strategy mission within 5 hours, you will be wiped out. My heart was shocked and my eyes slowly dropped. Eliminate. What a cruel word. Thinking back then, I sneered at these things. As Lin Qing's childhood sweetheart, I had been with him for so many years. I don't believe that he has no true feelings for me. But now, I believe it. Not a bit. I am really going to die. I took a deep breath. I turned on my phone and called him. I was going to make it clear to him. I didn't want to die and I was unwilling to die. The phone beeped several times and finally got through. The environment on the other side was noisy. Mad music mixed with shouting. It was not Lin Qing who answered the phone, but his friends. Who is it? Is there anything? One of them asked. I squeezed the phone tightly. I'm Lu Ran, I said. The person on the other end suddenly realized, it's Sister Lu. Sorry. Brother Lin seems to have forgotten to give you a note. I didn't know. I said, it's okay. Please give him the phone number. I have something to talk to him about. There was a few more noises on the other end of the phone. Don't sleep, Brother Lin. My sister-in-law is here to check on me, said the person who answered the phone. Lin Qing yelled, where is the sister-in-law? I'm single. There was a moment of silence in the air. The person next to him tried to smooth things over. Oh, you kid, you're too drunk. We just got married yesterday. How come you forgot after a few bottles of wine? Lin Qing smiled. Forgot? I didn't forget. How can someone you don't love be considered a wife? There's nothing to say about arranged marriages. I will divorce her sooner or later. I smiled silently. I thought to myself that it doesn't matter if it's sooner or later. Maybe tomorrow you'll be free. The phone went around in circles but still didn't reach him. Brother Lin drank too much. The other person said. He turned over and fell asleep. No matter how I called him, I couldn't wake him up. Sorry, sister-in-law. I shook my head, it's okay. We'll call him home as soon as he wakes up. He said. Do you want me to tell him a message for you? I said, okay. If he wakes up. I paused. Just tell him that I don't have much time left. If possible, I want to see him one last time. At the place where we last met. The other person was shocked and incoherent. Wait, sister-in-law, are you okay? Are you kidding? I'm not. Before he could finish his words, I hung up the phone. In the past 15 years, I have told many lies to Lin Qing. For example, when I was 6 years old, I said I was afraid of the dark and I had to ask him to take me home. For example, when I was 10 years old, I said I was afraid of pain and didn't like injections. I had to hold him. For example, when I was 12 years old, I said I was afraid of heights and asked him to help me take down the kite on the tree. For example, when I was 15, I said, if I marry you in the future, I will definitely be the happiest bride in the world. For example, on my 18th birthday, I said, Lin Qing, don't like Sue Ran anymore. She's not good. I told a lot of lies. The few truths I told were actually used at the last moment of my life. I hesitated in the cloakroom for a long time. I still wore that white dress. The size of previous years no longer fits me. Standing in front of the full-length mirror, looking at myself who can almost be described as skinny, I didn't know what to say for a while. I have been too tired these years. The pride of being a childhood sweetheart gradually disappeared after looking at the favorability panel again and again. Instead, I was worried and frightened all day long. I looked at the faint light above my head and felt a little shaken. Maybe I really need to rest. Before going out, I looked at the diamond ring on my hand again and put it in my bag. Lin Qing doesn't like being bound. Then I will give him freedom. It started raining outside again. Raindrops were dripping on the ground. When I got into the taxi, my hair was already soaked. Through the rearview mirror, I saw my miserable appearance. I hoped I would not meet any acquaintances. I prayed in my heart. The car drove to the destination quickly. A coffee shop, beautiful and exquisite. Located in this bustling city, it decorated the desolation with warm light. I pushed the door open and sat in a familiar seat. Same old, I said to the waiter. The waiter understood. After a while, a cup of cappuccino was placed on the table. I picked up the coffee and took a sip slowly. I waited for a long time. People came and went, new and old, and came and went in a hurry. Time passed by minute until the system reminded again, reminder, there are still 3 hours before the end of the task. I lowered my head, looked at the bottom of the coffee and the untouched dessert, and nodded, I know. Please keep up the good work. The system said. I smiled helplessly. Okay. Another hour later the door of the coffee shop was suddenly pushed open. I looked up and saw. It was Lin Qing. And Sue ran behind him. His first love. Lin Qing strode up to me. Raised his eyebrows and looked at me, time is running out? One last time? He laughed in anger, you have to act the whole set, right? Where's your medical report? Show me. I smiled. Shamelessly said, no. I just want to see you. I don't know what part of his reverse scale this sentence touched. He suddenly said, why didn't I realize that you had so many tricks and were so cruel? I didn't say anything. Sue ran next to him, pulled the corner of his clothes. Don't be angry, Alin. You just finished drinking. It will be bad for your health if you get angry again. Alin. Few people call him that. Back then. I had a cold war with Lin Qing for several months, because of this name. Now think about it. It's so childish. Lin Qing said, huh. He actually slowly calmed down. I looked at them. I thought to myself, if I hadn't interfered at that time, maybe they would have the best outcome. Sue Ran smiled and held out her hand to me, long time no see, old classmate. I also held out my hand. I accidentally saw the bracelet on her wrist. The combination of stars and moons is low-key and luxurious. That was the coming-of-age gift that Lin Qing, who was 18 years old, gave her after secretly working for half a year. I looked at Sue Ran, who had grown into a graceful young lady, and suddenly wanted to laugh. I was so stupid before. I actually thought that as long as time was long enough, I could end up with him. I really should let go. I looked at Lin Qing and said, I want to talk to you alone, okay? Lin Qing said, what else is there for us to talk about alone? Or do you also know that what you did is shameful? Sue Ran looked at me and sighed. I don't blame Lu anymore. She said, I just blame our lack of fate. Lin Qing frowned even deeper. I looked at the favorability panel and suddenly said, Lin Qing, if I'm going to die in an hour, what will you do? Lin Qing said impatiently, if I die, I die. What does it have to do with me? But I looked at him seriously. Perhaps because my eyes were too serious, he felt something was wrong. What do you mean? He asked me in a heavier tone. Su Ran also said, Student Liu, using such a joke to attract Lin's attention is too childish. I didn't say anything, but suddenly felt a pain in my lungs. Under Lin Qing's shocked expression, I covered my mouth and ran into the toilet and vomited a pool of blood into the toilet. This is the punishment for not completing the task. Host, time is running out. Please conquer the hero as soon as possible. The cold mechanical sound echoed in my mind. Otherwise you will be wiped out in 55 minutes and 3 seconds. I wiped my mouth, got it. After getting up, I washed my face in front of the sink. Looking at the pale face in the mirror, I felt an indescribable feeling in my heart. There was no one around. I called the system and asked the questions I had been wondering for the past 10 years. System, why do I have to capture Lin Qing? I smiled bitterly, my eyes full of fatigue. Why does my life need love to prolong? I don't want to die. The system was silent for a while, and then answered, this is the rule. I lowered my hands and accepted this reality. As soon as I came out of the bathroom, I ran into a wall of people. I raised my head and saw only a face as delicate as a demon. It was Lin Qing. He looked down at me, and his narrow peach eyes were filled with undisguised disgust. Should I say it or not, you are really suitable to be an actor. Lin Qing sneered, aren't you tired of writing and directing so many plays? This time, I didn't refute him, but instead gave him a bright smile. It was like the first time we met. Tired? I said softly. So. I need to have a good rest. Lin Qing was stunned. He looked at me. His slightly widened eyes contained emotions I couldn't understand. I ignored them. I looked away and walked away without looking back. I walked too fast. I didn't notice. He raised and lowered his hand. It seemed like he wanted to keep him. I gave up on the plan to capture Lin Qing. Looking out the window. I wanted to take a walk while I had the last bit of time. When I went back to get my bag, Su Ran was sitting on a chair. She looked at me with a playful look on her face. Student Liu. The game of wolf is coming won't be fun if you play it too much. I glanced at her. In those years abroad, she had been reborn. She was full of confidence. She was completely different from the timid girl before. Looking at Su Ran with her delicate makeup, I couldn't help but think of myself looking in the mirror just now. Just like the ugly duckling and the white swan. There is no comparison. I smiled with relief. You're right. I picked up my bag and walked out of the cafe. From now on, I won't play anymore. Never again. I wanted to go to the park opposite the cafe. To get there, I had to cross a street. Maybe it was because it was a weekday, so there were few people. I was the only one waiting for the traffic light. I looked at the red countdown. After a while, the countdown ended, the green light came on, and I walked forward. I was halfway there when I suddenly heard a sharp horn and the driver's shout, "Get out of the way." The white flash of light shone on me. I watched the car zoom in and out, but I couldn't move. Under Lin Qing's broken eyes, the car hit me straight. So funny. It turns out that people can really be hit by cars. It turns out that being hit can really not hurt because of the surge of adrenaline. After accompanying Lin Qing for so many years, it ended up with only such an ending. I smiled bitterly in my heart. Miserable. Suddenly, a familiar voice flashed through my mind, the host is in danger of death. Do you want to exchange memory for life? As if I saw hope, I used up my last bit of strength to answer, yes. The mechanical voice sounded in my ears without any emotion. The host has agreed to exchange all memories for life. Life is replenishing, memory is being destroyed. Suddenly, a white light appeared in front of my eyes. The exchange has been completed. I fainted completely. When I woke up again, I didn't know how many days had passed. I opened my eyes in a daze and saw only a vast expanse of white. There was no sound in the plain ward. The sun shone quietly on the sheets. Everything was as quiet as heaven. I sat up and looked around in confusion. I wanted to get out of bed, but I was restrained by the various tubes on my body. The sleepy nurse sitting next to me suddenly woke up and looked at me with a slightly incredible look in his eyes. "You finally woke up," she exclaimed. Before I could answer, she pressed me down on the bed. "Lie down and rest for a while. I'll go call the doctor first." Then she walked out of the ward. I had no choice but to lie down on the bed and wait. The system's voice sounded again. "The host's last mission failed. The system will issue a new task. I hope the host will continue to work hard and complete it. Tip: this will be the last chance. If the host fails the task, the system will erase your existence according to the rules." Finally, it paused for a while, like a warning. "I hope you cherish this hard-won life." I stared at the white ceiling, and my heart was sour. I wanted to find the cause, but my mind was blank. Seeing that the system didn't speak, I had to speak first. "So, what is the task this time?" The system didn't respond. I thought it was a bug and asked it several times, but it fell into the sea. Suddenly, the door of the ward opened. The doctors came to check my body. The cold machine made a regular sound. The doctor looked at the screen and nodded. "Well, it's no longer a big deal." Then he said half-jokingly, "It's a miracle that you can survive intact after being hit by a car so far." I smiled and didn't comment. The next day, before I was discharged from the hospital, an uninvited guest came to the ward. The man was packing my luggage awkwardly, muttering that it was a good thing that I was thick-skinned, otherwise he would really become a widower. I frowned, hesitated for a while, and asked him, "Do we know each other?" "It's not good to touch my things right away." Seeing his increasingly ugly face, I continued, "Whether we know each other or not, please leave, otherwise I will call the police." The man was silent for a long time. He watched me, suddenly sneered, and scattered the clothes in his hand. "What are you fucking? If it wasn't because of my parents, I would come here?" He stood up and looked at my eyes. The fist finally couldn't control the emotions and smashed it on his face. I roared, "If the old lady is the Oscar Awards ceremony, I must use my head to smash you into the ICU." I don't know why I saw this man for the first time, but I always wanted to slap him. He looked at me unbelievable. "You actually hit me?" I pant and hate myself that I had a lot of energy to eat too much. I raised my fist. "I'm going to hit you." A trace of hurt flashed in his eyes. "You weren't like this before," I said. "Then I was quite a coward before." Lin Qing turned around and walked out of the ward. With a bang, he slammed the door before leaving. I looked at his resolute back and rolled my eyes. "He's sick." After a while, the doctor asked me to go downstairs for another checkup. When I walked in the corridor, it was already evening. The peach-pink afterglow of the sunset sprinkled on the white tiles like ink. I looked at the sky outside the window. The system's voice suddenly rang in my ears. "1/3 of the mission has been completed. Please keep up the good work, host." I was a little confused. While the system was not pretending to be dead, I quickly asked it, "So what is the mission this time?" I don't know if it was an illusion, but I actually heard a chuckle. Although it was fleeting, it was like a stone thrown into a pond, which made my heart surge with waves. Non-stop, non-stop. The system said, "Then, I will issue you the final task. This task must be completed, otherwise you will lose everything, including your life. This task is, get freedom. The sunset outside the window is brilliant, burning all the incredible dreams of the midsummer night." The voice of the system still echoes in my mind, endlessly. "Welcome to restart your life, Xiaolu. The examination report is out. I was diagnosed with amnesia caused by brain damage. The man who came to harass me a few days ago had a wonderful face after receiving this report. He looked at it for a long time, and finally lowered his head reluctantly and said, I thought you were playing the game of crying wolf again. He didn't even apologize. I didn't pursue it, but stood up, opened my backpack, and threw a stack of papers in front of him. Sign it. I was as cold as a domineering president. There are some things I don't want to say a second time. Lin Qing picked up the stack of papers and looked at it. His face turned from colorful to red. He read word by word, "Manual for supporting male models?" I immediately snatched the report away. It was too late. Lin Qing's head seemed to be burning with fire. Lu Ran. You are capable, right? He almost laughed out of anger. Why did you show me this? To give me a sense of crisis? Want me to be jealous because of this? I quickly took out another report from my bag. No, this is the one I want to give you. You took the wrong one just now. Thinking of the smirk of the nurse Ame, I felt sweaty. Lin Qing pushed his hand and said viciously, no matter what it is, I will not feel a sense of crisis and be jealous of you. Forget about it. I said something without thinking. Are you sick? You should also come with me to check your brain. I was hit by a car. You were simply caught by the door. Lin Qing glared at me fiercely. I shoved the divorce agreement in his face and pointed at the title and said, look carefully. What is this? Divorce, marriage, agreement. The fire on his head gradually died down. You want to divorce me? He asked me. I nodded, yes. I don't know what the new task issued by the system means. But based on the progress of the previous completion, it probably wants me to stay away from bad men and embrace a new life. Lin Qing frowned. Are you serious? I raised 3 fingers. It's more real than real gold. His eyes gradually became complicated. Finally, he threw the report casually and said, I'm tired. I have a dinner tonight. Go back and rest for a while. After saying that, he wanted to stand up and leave. I immediately stopped him. What are you avoiding? You don't love me, right? Lin Qing's footsteps paused. I really don't love you, he said. But we are in an arranged marriage. We still need to discuss the divorce with our parents. Do you think this is a joke? I was relieved. I nodded and said, then go back and report it first. He slammed the door and left. It seems that I was really caught by the door in my previous life. The next day, I was discharged from the hospital. Standing outside the hospital, looking at the pear blossoms that looked like snow on the branches, I realized that it was already spring. Under the system prompt,